Hello there, good afternoon. I'm your host Abdurrahim Kashor and this is L24 Daily Special Coverage. Ukraine has recaptured several settlements in the northeastern Kharkiv region as part of a surprise counterattacks. President Vladimir Zelensky, he claimed that this week we have a good news from Kharkiv region, adding that now is not the right time to name those settlements where the Ukrainian flag has returned. Shelling resumed near Ukraine's Zaporizhia nuclear power plant on Wednesday. Ukrainian officials accused Russian forces of firing on the city of Nikopolo, across from the plant as well as in Ironhowder, where the power plant is located. Vladimir Putin has threatened to tear up a fragile Ukraine grain deal, allowing exports from the Black Sea. During this aggressive speech at the economic conference in Vladivostok, Putin said that he would speak with the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan about limiting the destinations for grain exports. Putin also threatened to cut off all deliveries of gas, oil and coal to Europe if they impose a price cap on Russian energy imports. Will there be any political decision that contradicts these contracts? Yes, we just want to fulfill them. We will not supply anything at all if it contradicts our interests. Putin declared that Russia had lost nothing when asked about the cost of invasion. The main gain is strengthening our sovereignty. To analyze all this information, I'm joined live from Ukraine by Mr. Ruslan Botnik, Director of the Ukrainian Institute of Politics. And from Russia, he may join Mr. Leon Savin, member of Military Scientific Society of the Ministry of Defense. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us in this debate. A short break and we start our debate. And before we delve into our discussion, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Wednesday that Kiev forces had recaptured several localities in Kharkiv region of northeastern Ukraine from Russia. Troops observers have reported in recent days of supposed breakthrough of Ukrainian forces in the Kharkiv region, without this information being verifiable from any independent sources.
Цього тижня маємо хороші новини з Харківщини.
This week we have good news from Kharkiv region. Probably all of you have already seen reports of the activity of defenders of Ukraine. Now is not the time to name those localities where the Ukrainian flag returned.
Населені пункти, в які повертаються українські.
Mr. Savin, just the same question will be directed to you. Do you think that the latest visit by the IAEA inspectors will secure the nuclear facility of Zaporizhia from a further shelling, either from Ukraine or Russia, as they are claiming? And do you think that this Ukrainian counteroffensive will boost Ukraine troops for more successes?
If to pay any attention previous experience of the conflict in Ukraine, I think no. Because there are some neo-Nazi group inside of Ukrainian military, they are not controlled by central military governance of Ukraine. So they will do that we would like, to kill civilians and to promote any kind of violence and to do shelling on some special facilities like nuclear plant in Zaporizhia. So it will be a serious problem, because there are some materials, radioactive materials that may be dangerous for populations not only in Ukraine and Russia, but also in European country. And I think the provocations from Ukrainian side will be continued. Concerning this offensive, Russian military was prepared for this kind of counterattacks. Intelligence provided information about possible two directions of counterattacks, and now we have massive counteroffensive in this district near the Kharkiv and in front line in general. So I think because Russia have superiority in air, that most important, it will be not prolonged from Ukrainian side. It will be stopped. And of course, we should pay attention that it's a war for Ukraine. In Russia, there is no mobilization. It's just a special military operation.
Very good indeed. Thank you so much, Mr. Savin. Now, let's tackle the second point. Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesperson, stated that Russian gas supplies to Europe will not resume until Western sanctions against Moscow are lifted. Peskov clarified that the sanctions were the sole reason behind Russia's decision to shut down Nord Stream 1 pipeline. Peskov's comments came amid a deepening energy crisis across Europe that was further worsened after Gazprom announced that a 3-day maintenance work due to an oil leak in one of the Nord Stream 1 turbines will extend until further notice.
You know that the problems with the pumping occurred because of the sanctions, which have been imposed against our country and a number of companies by Western states, including Germany and the UK. Other reasons that would cause problems with the pumping don't exist. Of course, there is one unit turbine remaining, and it also malfunctions and breakdowns occur. This leads to the pumping stopping, given that the sanctions continue to work, given that they bring a legal and practical mess into what is related to technical maintenance of all the knots and the units. Right now, we can only hope for this one unit, for bringing it somehow back in order.
Staying with you, Mr. Savin, we all know that Russia now is using the energy sector as a leverage or even as a weapon against all European countries, as they are claiming. But do you think there is another solution for Russia to avoid sanctions by not using its energy card? I believe this is the only key to fight back these sanctions. And I believe you, as a Russian also, you do agree with that, right?
From point of view of geoeconomics, of course, Russia will use energy supplies like kind of political dialogue. It's, of course, very useful because European economics depends on cheap Russian gas and oil. And they should be prepared for it. For example, in 2014, personally, I proposes to use gas sanctions against European countries just to be more cooperative with Russia, because from 2014, first pocket of sanctions was imposed against Russia, and energy supplies seems from Moscow like counter sanctions, not sanctions. European Union and the West itself started sanctions, so they should stop sanctions and to normalize relations with Russia from economic point of view. Of course, besides gas and oil supplies, we have another types of tools of influence on European countries too, and also on United States. For example, we providing uranium to United States and some special supplies besides energy. So we still have in reserve some instrument for influence.
So staying with you, Mr. Savin, don't you think it's quite logical from Russia by cutting gas supplies to European countries? Because before this, these countries tried the hardest to destroy Moscow's economy by imposing numerous sanctions. And now that Russia is acting against that suicidal sanctions policy, they are all blaming Russia for weaponizing the energy sector. That are you saying about this, Mr. Savin? Is Russia has the right to act like this?
Russian gas used for industrial sector of European countries, including military sector. European country producing tanks, weapons, bombs, and provide these ammunitions to Ukraine, and it used it against Russia. So Russia have full right to cut gas supplies to Europe. At least this is Russian gas, not European. So we are owner of these supplies, and we do decision in this situation. I understand that situation is complex. So Europe should to think again how to cooperate with Russia.
Very good indeed. Now let's tackle a different topic, which stated that the Russian President Vladimir Putin said it would be really impossible to isolate Russia and that Moscow would defy the West's attempts to push Russia off the global stage. Speaking at an economic forum in the eastern city of Vladivostok, Putin said that Russia saw more opportunities in entering markets in the Middle East and Iran, following imposition of sweeping Western sanctions in response to Russia's military campaign in Ukraine.
Yesterday, Gazprom and its Chinese partners decided to move to rubles and yuan in 50-50 split when paying of Russian gas supply. I would add that short-sighted actions have spurred global inflation. It has already surpassed records that have been set many years ago in various countries. We are now focused on developing our infrastructure in the East. This will open new possibilities for Russian companies to access markets in Iran, India, countries of the Middle East and Africa, and of course also to supplies coming from these countries.
Vladimir Putin, Mr. Savin, is clearly saying that if you are not paying by ruble, if you are not lifting the sanctions, I will dispatch the Russian gas and the whole energy sector from Europe toward Asia, notably the major allies such as China and India. What that's supposed to mean? And could Europe survive without the Russian energy for a long time, Mr. Savin?
Yes, Russia has turned to the east. It's not east in geographical sense, it's the east in global sense, global south, global east. We already provide energy supplies and enlarge our economic relations with China, with India, with Pakistan, with Southeast Asia itself, also with Middle East. We have new trade deals with the Islamic Republic of Iran, for example, with some African countries, with Latin American countries. And Mr. Putin is correct when he told that it's not possible to isolate Russia because we have access to many sea routes in the north direction, in the south direction, east direction, etc. So we respect sovereign country who already cooperate with Russia. And like Mr. Putin told, this kind of Western pressure to the Russia just strengthened our own sovereignty. And you see, we developing cooperation with many important actors in South Asia region and also in Africa. And of course in Algeria too, because in the last military exercises, Vostok 2022, Algeria also participated. So it's very important and kind of symbolic factor too.
Very good point that you have raised. Coming to you, Mr. Ruslan, welcome again. And once you have any important assets, you simply work on those strong pillars that it cannot easily replace, Mr. Ruslan. For instance, Ukraine and its agricultural production to the whole world. Ukraine is using the grain, wheat production as a window to breathe from this devastating war, just like Russia is doing with its energy sector facing the sanctions imposed on its economy. So how do you find Putin's actions so far, Mr. Ruslan? And do you think this sanctions policy will cripple Russia and help Ukraine?
Oh, it's a very difficult question because I think our Western partners, Western allies of Ukraine do a lot against of Russia and do not enough for Ukraine in this situation. Of course, sanctions make a big influence of Russian economy, especially if in long term, in nearest 2, 3, 5 years, Russia society will feel a very bad result from these sanctions. But at the same time, I'm not sure that Ukraine has this time. And the Western partners help a lot of Ukraine with military support, financial support, but not with the developing economy, but not with the rebuilding country in such strong situation. So, of course, we hope that these sanctions will will take off Russian abilities to continue this war, will lead to Russia to take off their troops from Ukraine, because they will not be able to continue to provide the support for their troops. But I think it will be very long time and very long war.
Quite understood. Coming to you, Mr. Salvin, the whole European countries are looking now for an alternative to the Russian gas. Italy, at the very beginning, already secured its status in this matter by signing a new agreement with Algeria. But what about the rest of Europe, especially Germany? They couldn't make a deal with the Qatari side, and winter is on doors. And what about Ukraine as well? How they are going to face this problem and the winter coming with Russia still fighting over there?
Yes, there will be a serious problem for European economics, especially for Germany, because Germany takes the most of Russian natural gas supplies. And we see that the European Union, European Commission already preparing some extra activity to provide donation for industrial sector and economics itself, and also separated Germany, France, and some other country like the Netherlands, and looking how to prepare for the winter. But I think there is no real alternative for big supplies of natural gas, because liquid natural gas from United States, there is not enough tankers to provide it to European coast. And of course, there is also limits from African and Near East, because also limits of tankers. And there are also limits of pipelines to direction of Europe. And most of Russian gas provided now through Turkish stream. We provided it to Turkey and some part to Balkan countries and our partners like Serbia, for example. So there will be a real problem for this winter to householders in most of European countries, and also a problem for industrial sectors of economics, for metal sectors, for very special sectors that depends on the core of European economics.
Very good indeed. Now, let's tackle the latest meeting in Germany. The U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said that U.S. President Joe Biden has approved additional military aid to Ukraine worth up to $675 million. Speaking at the start of the meeting on Thursday with senior officials from allied countries at Ramstein Air Base in Germany, Austin said that Biden approved the latest tranche of U.S. assistance on Wednesday. He said that the package includes artillery munitions, Humvees, anti-tank systems, and even more.
And we must evolve as the fight evolves. In the weeks since the contact group last met, the United States has committed another $6.3 billion in security assistance to Ukraine. And yesterday, the President approved the latest tranche of U.S. assistance to Ukraine, valued up to $675 million. And this is the Biden administration's 20th drawdown of equipment from U.S. stocks for the Ukraine since last August. The latest package includes more Gimlers, 105mm howitzers, artillery munitions, HARM missiles, Humvees, armored ambulances, anti-tank systems, small arms, and more.
Mr. Ruslan, U.S. and its allies such as Germany, Poland are still weaponizing Ukraine by more weapons and a huge budget to continue the war as long as it takes. And on the other side, Russia is so powerful in this field. In addition to this, they are getting more military equipments from Iran and looking toward North Korea as well. So, Mr. Ruslan, this is a direct question, and I need a direct answer as well. As a Ukrainian, do you think this war, the so-called special military operation, will come to an end by giving more weapons to each side? Don't you think that this will cause more destruction to Ukrainian infrastructure?
I'm always honest with you, my friend, and with our watchers. Of course, its military support is extremely important for Ukraine, because without this military support, we would be defeated in this war, and we have no chance to win in this war, no chance at all. But of course, at the same time, we understand that the main goal of Western partners and Ukraine in this situation is not to win over the Russia, but to exhaust the Russia, to push Russia to take all their troops from Ukraine. And no one clever man, I think, has the opinion that it's possible to win with nuclear weapon country in such convenience war. But it's impossible. But it's possible to exhaust the Russia, to push her back, and this military support going on it. I think, of course, for me, like Ukrainians, or less weapon from the both sides is better for Ukrainians. But at the same time, it's impossible situation for nowadays. Nowadays we have a war of attrition, a war of exhaustion, and we need more weapon.
Mm-hmm. Perfectly understood. Mr. Savin, how can you consider this Western aid to Ukraine? Will this stop Russia from reaching its main goals in this operation? And do you agree with what Mr. Ruslan has just stated?
The West use Ukraine like proxy for the war with Russia. They're afraid to fight with Russia directly, so they use Ukraine. And in weapon supplies, there also a dark side. First of all, black market. And we see the many Western supplies already got on the black market and provided to different parts of Europe, Asian countries, etc. You can to find some websites and to buy for very cheap price American or European weapon. Second point is because some persons who control weapon supplies, they have extra black money from this kind of specific operations. Of course, Russia not happy that United States and some European countries provide military techniques and weapons to the Ukraine. But we see who is real beneficiary from this conflict. United States, military industrial sector of United States, because they produce more and more and provide it to the front in Ukraine. But of course, you need to take into account that there are a lot of fake news, for example, that North Korea will provide some weapon to Russia. We have a note in our stocks, and just on recent military exercise in far east of Russia, you can see that we have enough reserves in military staff, in techniques and personnel, and arms itself. So Russia ready to continue this special operation till the logical end, to finish neo-Nazism and militarization of Ukraine.
Very good indeed. Mr. Ruslan, I'm wondering, let us say Ukraine is being freed up from Russia, and we all know that Western allies will ask for the money back, especially US. If you don't pay your debt by money as it is given, you will be drowned in economic crisis. So Ukraine is going to face this problem, let us say, just once this war ends up. Will they trade the government self-authorized to US? I mean, in other words, the strategic, sensitive decision in Ukraine, they will be taken from a different base, if you know what I mean.
First of all, I want to answer for one remark of my colleague about the Ukraine like a proxy of United States. Of course, Ukraine is extremely oriented on the United States, especially after the Russian invasion in Ukraine. But if you remember, Russia, United States, Great Britain, a lot of countries around the world before this war said that Ukraine have no chance to win. Ukraine will be in defense 72 hours, 48 hours. They all, to be honest, they all Western world, they have no any hope that Ukraine will be possible to defend against Russian intervention. So the dialogue, it's very popular mistake in the Russian thoughts about the Russia-Ukraine like a proxy. Ukraine is not proxy, but at the same time, Ukraine is very important and high-level sovereign player in this situation. But of course, we are very dependent on United States and European support, from both sides, military equipment and financial. Talking about the debts, it's a great problem because we have a lot of support, financial support from the Western countries, from 40 till 70% of state budget every month in Ukraine. It's support from Western countries. And all this money is debt. There is no present for Ukraine. There is just loans, bargains, and so on. And I think after this war, Ukraine will not be able to pay honestly our own debts. We will be looking for the restructurization or something like this.
Thank you ever so much for this explanation, Mr. Ruslan. As last word, Mr. Savin, and as Putin stated, he will move to the Asian continent beyond the current time war. Mr. Savin, as Russia, as a Russian, do you prefer to be closer to Europe or to the Asian continent?
Personally, I prefer to be more closer to Asia because most part of Russia is in Asian part, in a geographical sense. And our cultural ties, historical ties, more connected to Asian countries, Asian region. And we see now that engine of the world economy is located in Asia, not in Europe. Europe is already gone from the world politics and world economics. So it's of course better to be in Asia. But from point of view of Eurasianism, idea of Eurasia, Russia is not Asia and not Europe. Russia is a very specific entity, Eurasia.
Quite understood. Mr. Savin from Russia, Mr. Ruslan from Ukraine, thank you ever so much for taking part with us in this debate. And to this end, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us in this discussion. And for now, all I can say, take care of yourself and have a blessed day.